Remember back in 2022? It felt like we were on the verge of something huge. Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, felt like it was right around the corner. Man, the hype was absolutely electric. But fast forward to today, and wow, the whole conversation has changed. We're going to dig right into that shift from that explosive anything is possible hype to the much more practical and honestly more interesting reality of where AI is right now. So, this is the big question on everyone's mind, isn't it? After that incredible, mind-blowing start. Are we hitting a wall? Is the AI revolution actually stalling out, or is it just, changing direction? Let's take a look. Okay, the first really big piece of this puzzle is a classic idea that suddenly slammed into the AI world: diminishing returns. The old strategy of just make it bigger, is starting to show some serious cracks. You see, the fundamental problem the whole industry is staring down is that the old playbook just isn't working anymore. For a while there, the strategy was pretty simple. Just throw more data, more computing power, more parameters at a model, and poof, it gets smarter. But now, the return on that massive investment, the actual intelligence boost you get for all that effort, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, just look at OpenAI's models. It's the perfect example. The jump to GPT 3.5 was a genuine shock. It was a massive leap. GPT-4 was another really clear, noticeable improvement. But after that, the gains started to feel, well, kind of minor. People started to ask, is this really that much better? It basically confirmed that the return on just making things bigger is falling off a cliff. And let's be super clear here. This is not about picking on one company. The sources are really adamant that this is happening everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's Google's Gemini, Meta's Llama, or any of the others. Everyone building these huge language models is running smack into the very same wall. So how did we go from AGI is tomorrow to this so fast? Well, it really helps to look at a timeline of the whole hype cycle over the last few years. And believe me, they have been some wild years. Let's try to put a number on it. If we rate the peak hype back in 2022 as a perfect 100, then today that excitement has been chopped in half, down to a 50. A drop like that isn't just a small shift. It's a massive reality check for the entire industry. It all kicked off in November 2022. That was peak hype. GPT 3.5 dropped, and it really did feel like AGI was inevitable. 2023 kept that train rolling with GPT-4 and all its new skills. But 2024, that was the big turning point. That's when companies actually started trying to use these tools, and that knowledge gap between what was promised and what was real closed, and it closed fast. By 2025, with another minor update, the new, more sober reality was pretty much set in stone. So what was it that people figured out that just killed the vibe? Well, three core problems became painfully obvious. First, hallucinations. The models just make stuff up. That makes them fundamentally unreliable. Second, they can't set their own goals. They need constant handholding, constant prompt engineering. And third, there's this basic incompetence. They don't have real internal logic. They can't break a big problem down into smaller steps like a person can. So here's the bottom line. They're amazing tools for sure, but they are not thinking machines. This is not AGI. Okay, so this brings us to the most important part of this whole story. If the old strategy, just go bigger, is out the window, what's the new playbook? What does the industry do now? Where does AI even go from here? Well, that leads us right to the new AI playbook. Because the industry is definitely pivoting, and there are three really clear, really practical trends that are rising from the ashes of that old hype cycle. Here's what's happening. First, there is a relentless, hardcore focus on making AI cheaper. Second, a big strategic move away from those one-size-fits-all giant models and towards smaller, specialized ones. And third, companies are starting to take matters into their own hands, building their own powerful in-house models. There's this one quote from the source material that it nails this shift perfectly. It's now cost considerations more than intelligence. Think about that. Once the intelligence gains started to flatten out, the new race wasn't about who had the smartest AI. It became about who could deliver good enough results for the cheapest price. Economics is driving the bus now. And that leads right into the second trend. Companies are getting way more savvy. They're figuring out that if they take their own unique, in-house knowledge and pair it with a smaller, way cheaper AI model, they can get absolutely fantastic results. They don't need to pay a fortune for the biggest, most general model out there anymore. Which brings us to the third big shift, companies just building their own models from scratch. And check out these examples. NASA isn't asking some generic AI about space. No way. They built their own model trained on their one-of-a-kind data to predict forest fires and how glaciers move. Swiggy is training models on food data. Netflix has its legendary recommendation engine. This is all about precision, control, and using the data that only you have. All right, so with these big trends in mind, this focus on costs, on specialization, and on custom-built models, what does the next chapter for AI actually look like? So what can we expect to see next? The source points to three big things. First, once this tech settles down a bit, get ready for a hiring boom for software engineers to actually build stuff on this new stable platform. Second, expect a huge research push for brand new ways of building AI, moving beyond the limits of today's models. And third, a very welcome change, a shift to more honest, more measured marketing from AI companies, focusing on real-world value instead of science fiction dreams. Now, when it comes to who's responsible for all that hype, the source material does not pull its punches. It levels this pretty sharp critique, basically saying that a lot of industry leaders knew full well what the limitations of their models were, but for a quick profit, they let the hype run wild anyway, allowing a misinformed, almost toxic narrative to spread like wildfire. And that really leaves us with this final, crucial question. We've traced this whole journey from a fever dream of hype to a much more sober reality. We've seen the technical walls they've hit and the new, smarter playbook that's emerging. But as this incredibly powerful technology keeps growing up, the biggest question might not be a technical one at all. It's this. Will the industry choose a path of honest, measured progress, or will the temptation of hype always be too strong to resist?